The faint uprising of a remote sympathy with this unknown woman weeping for joy that she could go to Yeovil on Maunday Thursday instead of Good Friday gave place now in John's mind to a curious sensation that he had experienced only once or twice before in his life. He saw this little group of children outlined against this rickety landing stage, which must have been built in the days when there were still barges on the Brew, under a sudden illuminated aura. He saw them as a recurrence of a human group of vividly living bodies and minds, with cuckoo flowers and hedge parsley and dock leaves and river mud gathered around their forms as if arranged there by a celebrated artist. The badness of the children, the sweetness and charm of the children, with these spring growths all around them and a solitary invisible lark quivering in the blue, seemed to carry his perturbed spirit beyond some psychic threshold where the whole pell-mell of the mad torrent of existence took on a different appearance. "Goodbye and good luck," he called out to them as he went off. He had hardly time, however, to reach a spot in the curve of the river that was near to his friend Barter's airplane landing place, and there, across a field or two, he could see the motionless air vessel, when he heard a panting breath behind him and the sound of a little running feet. He swung around and found Morganelli at his side. The child was too breathless to speak at first, but she caught the flap of his overcoat with her hand and kept pace with him as he walked slowly on. "Going my way, Nellie?" he said. He had heard them call her Nellie in their quarrel, but the syllables Morgan had escaped him. "They tease I terrible, mister, at schoolyard," announced the new captain of the robber band. "They call I Basti Basti. They did run after I in the dining room yesterday till I bit Amy Brown's wrist so she bled awful bad." "They mustn't tease you, Nellie, and you mustn't bite people's hands," murmured John helplessly, thinking of himself that if, when Bloody Johnny got on his nerves, he could bite him, so he bled awful bad, it would be an immense clearing of the air. "Red Robinson made me mother go on Wells Road one time and ring up the Elms's front door. He told her she harks for the bleeding son of a bitch and make him cough up. Harks! That's the way he talks, mister. 'Tis London language, they tell I. Though me mother says it ain't as King George do speak. Do you think King George do say harks instead of artst? Mixta?" Just making sure it's not recording me, so I'm not doing this for no reason. "Ah, did your mother go?" inquired the inquisitive John, postponing the problem of King's English till he had learned more of this rich piece of scandal. "Yes, she went, and I went with her," explained Morganelli eagerly. "And an Emma Sly, that's one of the servants at the Elms. Gave mother port wine and plum cake, and she gave me lime juice and selective biscuits. And I did select the kind that has sugar on 'em and HP and pink stripes. Emma told me and mother what HP stands for. She says her dad, who he shepherded, or Lord P, up Mudump, where he did think thick P stood for his master's one's self. But Emma told me and mother what folks that knows what it really be. Do you know what it really be, mister? Sis Cole doesn't know, 'cause I told she. And I bain't a-going to tell she nor Bert either what HP stands for. You wouldn't, would you, mister? Ignorant, common, ordinary kids like what they be." "Whew. Did your mother ask to see Mr. Crow?" inquired the insatiable John. Need a beer after that. "She did say summat about it," replied Morganelli, "but she never called no names, as bleeding son of a bitch and such like. And she just sat down again by kitchen fire and went on drinking thick wine and eating thick cake, when Emma Sly said her master had company that evening." "I'll talk to a cousin of mine who's in town over the holiday," pronounced John, thinking of his mind of Dave Spear. "He knows this chap Robinson well, and I'll tell him to make the fellow stop worrying about your mother. Did she say anything to the servant about coughing up and so forth?" "Mother was so sick with Emma Sly when she came away," replied Morganelli, "that she hadn't the tongue. Oh, there's Betsy got loose and number one running after she." The diplomatic John cast his eyes over Lake Village Field towards Blackwater Hut, and there, sure enough, was the distracted figure of Abel Twig, looking for all the world like the old man in Mother Goose who had lost his crooked sixpence. We all know that one, right? Mr. Twig was frantically limping after the mischievous animal, who was tossing up his heels and leaping into the air as she evaded him. In a manner more worthy of a frolicsome heifer than a calm, mature giver of sacred milk. He ain't got no girt dog, really and truly, Morganelli informed her new friend. Sis thinks he have, and Bert do dream he have, but he ain't. Has he, mister? All the way back to his little office, John's thoughts kept hovering around the startling episode of the milk-white sword with the dark handle. I don't care what they do. I don't care what signs and omens they fling down. I don't care how much I infuriate them. They stopped those old Danes of Hyatt, but by God, they shan't stop me. I'm going to blow this whole unhealthy business sky high. I'm going to do it through the pageant of girds. In the depth of John's consciousness, something very lonely and very cold began to congeal itself into a little hard, round stone. I am myself, he thought. I am myself alone. His mood, to be advanced down that narrow little cobblestone road called Dry House Lane, toward the station became, for some reason, more and more antisocial, more and more inhuman. Miss Drew would have said he showed himself to himself as that moment, as the lecherous, cold-blooded, slippery, heartless, treacherous reptile that he was. Mary belongs to me, he thought. I'm the only man who will ever suit her. She couldn't let Tom touch her finger. I know her. And the feelings I get from making love to her is far beyond anything I could ever get from any other human being. But I won't let Mary think she can rule my whole life. I'm not one to stand that kind of thing. The truth is that I thought I liked making love to her in my own way. I'm not at all sure that I would like sleeping with her every night. She's an absolute necessity to me, I know that. But there's something about giving up my liberty to that room that worries me. And Tom, too. I like to have Tom all to myself. What I really am is a hard, round stone defying the whole universe. And I can defy it and get away if I want out of it, too. It's a lovely feeling to feel absolutely alone. Watching everything from outside, uncommitted to anything. Why should I accept the common view that you have to love other people? Mary belongs to me, but sometimes I wonder whether I love even Mary. I certainly don't love myself. I'm a hard, round glass ball. That is a mirror of everything, but that has a secret landscape of its own in the center of it. Oh, great stones of Stonehenge, you are the only gods for me. He caught sight of a little round, light-colored pebble at that moment, half embedded in the rough cement wall of an old shed that abutted about the narrow footpath of Dye House Lane. He stopped and ran the tips of his fingers over this thin object. It had once evidently been a unit, a portion of some anonymous heap of pebbles taken from a sea bank, to be used, as would be used here, for these were others like it embedded not far off, with mortar and gravel and building inexpensive walls. It was, however, very unusual to find such pebbles used in this way in Glastonbury, and this was the first in the town that John had ever set eyes upon. The afternoon sun shone bright and warm upon the shed wall as John touched this small, round stone, and in a yard behind this building some unseen tame pigeons began making a low, sweet, unctuous cooing full of sensual contentment. But the touch of the pebble carried John's mind far away from the peaceful spot. A dark, wild, atavistic sea spirit stirred within him, a spirit that reinforced and nourished afresh all the pride of his inmost being. This morbid religion of renouncement, of penance, of occult purgations and transformations. So his reckless thought went on. I'll never yield to this betrayal of life. If I am weak and nervous and timid, I'll win by cunning. And I won't compete either. I'll steer my life in a religion of values totally unknown to any of them. I won't fight them on their terms, but I'll conquer them all the same. I'll become air, water, fire. I'll flow through their souls. I'll flow into their inmost being. I'll possess them without being possessed by them. He scrutinized these pebbles still more closely. It was not exactly round. It was hard to tell its precise shape because it was so firmly embedded in the mortar. It was of a dull pinkish color. Where did it come from? From Chesil Beach? John had never seen either of the two coastlines nearest to Glastonbury, but he knew vaguely that the southernmost coast was steep and rocky, while the shores of the Bristol Channel were flat expanses of tidal mud. That was all he knew. But never mind where it came from. As he stared at this hard, opaque object, an indescribable rush of nervous maliciousness and vehement destructiveness coursed through his veins. Oh, it would please him. Oh, it would satisfy him in a great wild salt wave coming out of the dark heathen sea, were to sweep over this whole morbid place and wash the earth clean of all these phantasms. He had now reached the railroad crossing, but he found the gates closed. An interminable luggage train had to jerk and thud and rattle and groan itself by before these gates would open. He allowed his eyes to wander with a sudden penetrating attention, an almost savage attention, over each one of these lumbering goods trucks as they clattered and clanged past him. Real, he muttered viciously. That's what you think you are. Real and true. The only undoubted fact. A luggage train, taking Philip's dyes down to Exeter. In old days, it would have been a Roman convoy taking tin to that coast from the Mendips. I expect this damned sword was really made of tin. Tin swords. Tin shields, tin souls. Clutching out of the bars of the railroad gate and shaking it, he now relinquished all restraint and burst into a childish doggerel. In my midsummer pageant I'll mock the Grail, mock the Grail, mock the Grail. In my midsummer pageant I'll mock the Grail, for Arthur's sword is tin. When the train had passed at last and the gates were open, he walked very slowly over this dusty, sunny tracks, thinking. John's character had altered considerably, and he had begun to realize it in himself during the weeks of working with Mr. Geard. A certain chaotic tendency to drift in him, the drifting of the congenital tramp and the recklessness of the anti-social adventurer, had tightened and hardened into a kind of psychic intensity of revolt against all the gregarious traditions of the human crowd. There must be destruction, he said to himself as he entered the great western station yard, before any fresh wind from the gods can put new life into a place like this. So he said to himself in the fierce strength which the pebble from Chesil Beach had poured into his heart. But when he put his hand in the handle of this little office door, there came filtering up to the surface of his mind the old chilly sentiment of sceptical contempt. Let these things of gilded vapor, he thought, these things of tinsel and tin, have their day. Let the savage opposites of them have their day too. They are all dreams within dreams, and the underlying reality beneath them is something completely different from them all. Well, I'm going to end it there because that's the end of that chapter. And the next chapter is Maundy Thursday. It's too bad I won't be reading it on Thursday, but probably be reading some of it on Thursday. Till next time, cheers from Glastonbury.